Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight for KREM 2 News 10 at 10, where we give you more news in less time. I'm Cody Proctor. Let's get started. A terrifying scene in Lapwai today after a fire destroyed 2 homes and sent flames up into the sky. Tonight, we're actually hearing from a retired fire captain who saw the black smoke and raced to the scene to do what he could to help. He spoke to KREM 2's Kyle Simchuk in an exclusive interview new for us tonight. Kyle.
Well, yeah, Cody, John Lansing was out trap shooting with his daughter this morning. Driving back to their home in Lewiston, he saw the smoke and got to the scene before fire crews and used his decades of experience to keep this fire from destroying even more homes.
I noticed a large black column of smoke coming up from the middle of the town of Lapwai.
It wouldn't take a veteran firefighter to realize something was wrong, but John Lansing is one and knew he couldn't drive past it.
We had one house fully involved. That's gone. The second house was starting, but the only people there when me and my daughter pulled up was the Nez Perce Tribal Police and some bystanders with garden hoses.
Lansing is a retired fire captain out of San Bernardino County with more than 30 years of experience. He says while people tried to put out the fire with garden hoses, they were no match for the flames. When he arrived at the scene, there was only one police officer.
And I even told him, I said, if you can get me into the local fire station where we can get to one of the trucks, I can drive the truck and pump it. And he says, I don't have access to that building.
But soon after, Lansing says a Nez Perce Tribal Wildland fire truck pulled up.
I offered to help them establish a water supply off the fire hydrant. So we got water started into their engine so they could sustain an attack on the fire, and said, if I can give you some advice, let's get ahead of this thing. The stuff that's burning in the middle is not going to unburn. Look where it's going, and let's try and stop it there.
Lansing says the brush truck was still not enough to extinguish the flames, so they did everything they could to keep the fire away from the third house until help arrived. But in the end, 2 homes were destroyed.
They did a great job. If that wildland engine from the Nez Perce Tribal Wildland Fire Service didn't show up, we'd probably have lost a third house.
Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
Kyle, thank you so much. In the meantime, let's shift gears and take a look now at our weekend forecast. We've got meteorologist Michelle Boss in the Weather Center tonight. And Michelle, it's been hot, it's been dry. And what does it all spell for us when it comes to our fire danger?
Well, fortunately, we are going to be unfortunately, we're going to be dealing with that hot and dry weather all weekend long. Fortunately, we don't have to deal with any lightning, and we're not looking at any terribly windy conditions. So those are kind of the positive aspects. But yes, hot and dry really are going to be the key words for our weekend weather. Satellite and radar shows we did have a little bit of rainfall activity, some shower activity, even some thunderstorms over the higher terrain today. Those have since dissipated, and looking at clear skies during the overnight hours. Hot temperatures today, even hotter over the weekend. Heat advisories in effect for those areas shaded in orange, with highs in the mid-90s to low 100s, and overnight lows are going to be mild as well, in the 60s to lower 70s. It'll be a dry heat, though, not terribly humid out there. Currently, temperatures just under 80 degrees in Spokane right now, but still holding on to the low to mid-80s in Wenatchee, Moses Lake, and Othello. Ritzville still 82 and still 81 degrees in Lewiston. Short-term forecast keeps the skies clear overnight. We'll see lows dipping down into the low 60s, warming up quickly under full sunshine tomorrow. Will be 94 on Saturday, 96 on Sunday.
Michelle, thank you so much. And as this dangerous heat arrives, there are now burn bans in place statewide across Washington, including right here in Spokane County. Burn restrictions went into effect today for lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management. More than 10 eastern Washington counties are under the BLM's burn restrictions. Suzanne Ensley from the Bureau says it's necessary for people to follow these restrictions.
So if you want to cook something, take a propane stove. Any kind of open flame is prohibited at this point. If you're going to smoke, do it in your vehicle, or make sure you're in like a gravel road where there's no flammable materials.
The Spokane Fire Department says backyard open fires are prohibited as well. Burn restrictions will stay in place indefinitely until the weather changes. Scientists with the Washington State Department of Ecology are issuing a statewide drought advisory. The yellow on this map right here shows the parts of the state that are abnormally dry. The parts that are in beige mean they're in moderate drought. And as you can see, most, if not all, of Spokane County is considered to be abnormally dry. The state's advising water providers and users to keep close watch. The Department of Ecology says the warmest May on record melted snow more quickly, and what surged into rivers is now spent. Between late April and most of June, the state got only 47% of its normal rainfall. Time right now for Night Beat for a quick look at the day's top stories. Right now, dozens of firefighters battling a fire burning near Idaho's Hayden Lake. It's being called the Horse Ridge Fire. Already, it's burned about 3 acres. So far, no one's been hurt and no buildings have been damaged since the fire was reported on Wednesday. Officials believe holdover from a lightning strike a couple of weeks ago actually caused the fire. Planes and helicopters are being used to collect water from Hayden Lake and dropping it on the flames. A heads up for hikers and campers heading over to the Olympic Peninsula. Starting Sunday, campfires will only be allowed in existing fire rings at campgrounds in Olympic National Park. Beach campfires are not permitted. The changes go into effect Sunday at midnight. And North Idaho College will maintain its accreditation, at least for now. That's after the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities notified NIC it granted an extension on its show cause sanction. That means the college will continue normal operations for the next year. During that time, NIC must comply with key recommendations. The college has until April 1st of 2025 to get back in good standing with the commission. If that doesn't happen, federal requirements say the commission must withdraw NIC's accreditation. And that was your Night Beat. Text the word NIGHT to 509-448-2000 to learn more about any of these stories. We'll send them right to your phone. Nearly 2 months after jurors found Lori Vaile guilty on all charges, including murder, her family's coming forward to tell their side of the story with a new podcast and book. Valo's brother, Adam Cox, and her uncle, Rex Connor, started Tylee and JJ Silver Linings. The first episode of the podcast came out last Friday. The book isn't out just yet, but they say writing their story down has been therapeutic.
Being part of this book and podcast, I feel like it's another way for me actually to get therapy and also to help other people who may be going through similar things with their families.
We're just trying to heal like everyone else is trying to heal, not only everyone in our family, but everyone who has been touched by this story.
New podcast episodes will be released every week. Valo's sentencing is scheduled for July 31st. She also faces charges in Arizona. In national headlines tonight, the gunman convicted in a racist attack on Hispanic shoppers at a Texas Walmart back in 2019 will never again see the outside of a prison. A U.S. district judge sentenced 24-year-old Patrick Cruces to 90 consecutive life sentences today for killing 23 people at a Walmart in the border town of El Paso. He pleaded guilty to federal hate crime charges earlier this year after federal prosecutors took the death penalty off the table.
Even if we think that guilt is very clear, it saves them the time and resources of a trial. And it still allows the victims' families their moment in court because of the sentencing proceeding.
There's another case against Cruces set to proceed in Texas state court. Prosecutors have said they intend to seek the death penalty there. Well, the U.S. is providing more military aid to Ukraine, but this shipment includes a controversial type of weapon. They're called cluster munitions, which detonate dozens of submunitions called bomblets. The Biden administration announced it'll supply thousands of them to Ukraine within a brand new $800 million aid package. They're controversial because unexploded bomblets could harm civilians during and after a war. More than 120 countries banned the weapon. The U.S. says the munitions will have a lower dud rate, meaning fewer unexploded bombs could hurt civilians.
The DPICM ammunition we are delivering to Ukraine will consist only of those with a dud rate less than 2.35%. Compare that to Russia, which has been using cluster munitions across Ukraine with dud rates of between 30 and 40%.
Ukraine's repeatedly asked for cluster munitions as the country's troops struggle to make substantial headway against Russian forces. U.S. officials say Russia already uses them in civilian areas.